Unscripted.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another edition of PD and P-Dubs Unscripted, and this is part of my elective I'm doing with our middle school students where they're going to join me some for podcasting here, and so we got 4 of our 8th graders with us here. If you guys want to introduce yourselves.
I'm Gavin in 8th grade.
Hi, I'm Kenzie. Also in 8th grade.
And I'm Lucas, and I'm also in 8th grade.
I'm Elijah.
Good job. So we got Elijah, Lucas, Kenzie, and Gavin here with us. And we kind of threw out some ideas of different topics that they wanted to discuss. And so first one that they all kind of agreed upon that they want to do is, like, in a sense, talking to people, especially friends that don't believe in God. So why is this a topic that you guys wanted to dive into?
Well, I feel like it's something I've noticed in life. You know, it's kind of hard to tell sometimes, and I wanted to talk about it.
So I've been doing sports for several years, and I have many friends who are non-Christian but are like good kids. So I thought it would be an interesting topic to talk about.
Yeah, I feel like it's important to start like sharing, like the gospel.
Okay, so that kind of reaching out to share with people, because Gavin, you kind of shared about, like, through sports, you have a lot of friends that aren't Christian. Would you guys agree with that maybe outside of Emmanuel or like different parts of your life, you have a lot of people, whether friends or people in your life, that aren't Christians?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
But so what is kind of your experience with friends that are non-Christians? Is it positive, negative, or do they feel receptive to that message of Christ?
Mostly it's positive. Like, I haven't really had many negative experiences with them because they're generally nice kids. Like, they swear sometimes, but otherwise they're nice kids. I could hang out with them, have fun with them, and not worry about, like, any conflicts or anything.
Okay.
Yeah, I could agree with that too, because I feel like just because you're Christian doesn't mean like you're a nice person either.
So yeah, Lucas, you bring up a good point, because just because somebody is a Christian doesn't mean that they always act in Christian ways. Like, you hear stories of people that say, oh, they're a Christian, but their actions or attitudes, the way they speak, don't really line up with the Christian values or morals or ethics. But yeah, because would you guys say that there is a difference between how a Christian and a non-Christian acts when you look at people in your life that are maybe Christian or non-Christian?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So what's the difference, would you say?
I would think that Christians would try to be upstanding and would want to lead other people to Christ by their actions, but other people who don't have a religion would probably not really care much about what they do and what they do around other people.
So you would hope that, as a Christian, you would live out those things, but it doesn't mean because somebody's not a Christian that they're a bad person. Gavin, you kind of hit upon that a little bit ago by saying, you wouldn't mind hanging out with those friends that you have through sports. They're not like they are bad people, so to speak. They, live a good life, just they don't know Jesus. And that's the thing, is like, just because somebody's a Christian doesn't mean that they're a horrible person or they're not a good person by worldly standards. Because by worldly standards, you can be a good person and not have to believe in Jesus. Like, you see that in different examples of people. But when we look to faith, like when you look to Scripture, it says how only good works can be done through Christ. So, like, the reason why we do good works isn't for ourselves, but because Christ is working in us. The Holy Spirit's working in us, and that's what makes it good, because, God cares about our faith and not necessarily our actions. But, like, with your friends, when it comes to being a Christian or not, how do you know they aren't Christian, some of your friends or people you interact with?
Sometimes you can just tell by the way they act or the way they talk, or sometimes, like, when they say, oh my God, or use God's name in vain, they don't seem very considerate about the way they're using God's name.
But do Christians say, oh my God, or OMG?
I would
Yes.
say sometimes, yes, but they would realize it once they say it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I might disagree on that one a little bit, that not all the time, because I think it's becoming part of our culture and how we speak that people just don't care. They just say, oh my God, and they don't think about it.
Yeah, for me, sports are when I'm with kids outside of school usually. And, like, it's kind of hard for me to tell because I don't really talk about my faith too much with them, or really at all. But, even most of them don't really swear, but some of them do. And I really don't know
Okay.
or not.
But is that a hard conversation, like, because Lucas kind of said about not sharing your faith? Is it just because it doesn't come up, or maybe is there like, oh, it feels maybe a little uncomfortable to bring that up?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's just because I've never really done it with people I'm not sure about.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and I know you guys have coming up this school year as eighth graders sharing the gospel. Are you guys nervous about that?
Not
No.
really.
I think it would help me kind of share my faith a bit with all my friends, and especially going into high school when people start to challenge my faith.
Okay, because I think I know for the most part, but all of you guys are going to public high school next fall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Because I know two of you for sure are Palatine, and two of you guys, I'm not sure exactly where you're going. But so, yeah, it's just because I know your siblings are at Palatine High School, so that's why I know we have some future Pirates here on this podcast.
Go Pirates.
Sure, we can say go Pirates. Pittsburgh Pirates, that is. So,
Is that baseball?
yes, that's baseball. that's a baseball
fan
team.
over here.
So that experience, do you interact with people differently if you know they're a Christian or not a Christian?
I mean, it really depends. Like, it depends on, I guess, if they're active or non-active as a Christian, which is also another hard topic to explain.
Why is that a hard topic to explain, or what are you kind of meaning by that? I think I know what you're thinking, but just so I kind of have an idea.
Well, I mean, it's a pretty wide idea to be an active Christian or not. I guess to be an active Christian, it's basically like following the rules of the Bible and what God says to do, and and going to church, while a non-active Christian just sort of does whatever without having like an actual life goal, but they still like know Jesus is sort of there.
Okay, so that's where I kind of thought, like, kind of actually living out your faith, like doing things that like are important to help you grow in your faith, whether it's going to worship, being engaged in Bible study, praying, instead of, I don't want to sound negative in this, but have you guys ever heard the term creaster?
No.
So creasters, it's a term that you hear used in churches where people only come to church on Christmas and Easter.
Oh yeah.
So it's-
Yeah, that sounds
Yeah.
about right.
So it's a combination of Christmas and Easter. That's why they're creasters. And so it's one of those ideas of like, yeah, I believe in Jesus, but, I don't really go to church that often. I don't engage or strengthen that relationship with him. And there's a couple illustrations where I think it really points out the importance of being involved in church or in, Bible study, engaging with other Christians is like, think about if there was a husband and wife, and one of either the husband or wife says, I love you, but you don't spend any time with your spouse. Would that be a really healthy relationship?
Not
No,
really.
they married each other, but they wouldn't get to know each other more than they already do.
Right, and so that's kind of in a sense what people say when is like kind of put it to faith is be like, I love God, but I don't want to spend any time with God. Like that seems kind of norm in our society to be like, I'll make time for him. But if you hear that in the context of like a husband and wife, if the one of them says, oh, I love you, but I don't want to spend any time with you, we're like, that seems a little crazy, a little odd. Or the idea that like kind of going on this too is like good church attendance is seen as like once a month. What do you guys think about that when you hear like good church attendance is once a month?
Disagree. I think me as in my family, we try to go as frequent as possible, but sometimes there are conflict with football games and stuff. But there are 2 times, so it's a lot. It's not very challenging to, and we like to get to church as frequently as possible.
Yeah, I agree with Gavin.
Yeah, and I obviously would agree, like, hopefully the goal is you're there, weekly, but obviously there's certain things that could come up, whether illness, there are certain jobs that, like, you can't get out of, like, I've shared in confirmation, whether it's like a police officer, firefighter, paramedic, nurse, whatever, doctor, you can't necessarily get out of that if you're working on shift for that day. And I'm sure there's other jobs like that, but those are the first ones that come to my mind. But what really stands out to me is when I heard somebody say, if you only come to church once a month, that's 12 hours in a year that you're in church. Is that really going to help you improve?
Nope.
Not really.
Like, I know a lot of you play sports, some of you guys play instruments. Think about in a given year, if you only spend an hour doing that activity, that sport or practicing your instrument, would you get any better at that activity?
No.
Not at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think you would get any better at it. That's why I was a bad trumpet player in middle school and high school, because I never practiced. If I practiced, maybe I would have actually been better at playing the trumpet. And so this idea of like we need to be active in our faith, like you were talking about, Kenzie, is we have to be proactive of acting like, okay, I need to make time for this. Yes, our schedules are busy, but we need to start with that base of Christ and building our relationship with him, and then everything can fill in around that. And so obviously that would be a difference between Christians and non-Christians, where like as a Christian, hopefully we're active and we're trying to make that time to spend with God. But in a non-Christian case, they really don't care about going to church. They might go just because somebody invites them, or, okay, it's Christmas, I guess I should go because everybody else in the family is going. And so we have these things, and I think you guys all kind of said you've never really tried to share about your faith with non-Christians, right?
Yeah.
Not really. I mean, I haven't necessarily like tried to share it, but I've maybe like brought it up before.
And how did that go?
I mean, they just kind of like took it and moved on.
Okay.
So they didn't like really like object or like agree or anything.
Yeah, that's same with me. I like mentioned it, but they didn't really think much of it, and they're just like, oh, anyways.
So kind of like listen, but didn't want to engage in that conversation any further. Yeah. Obviously, it's important to you guys, your faith. Otherwise, you wouldn't want to have this conversation talking about how you witness and share your faith with non-believers. So this is something important to you, so you want that person to listen. Because think about other things that you're interested in. Do you enjoy engaging in conversations about that?
Yeah.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I love talking sports with people, and obviously talking faith is important as well. But you want somebody to be engaged with that, and you can tell when somebody doesn't really care. But as much as like maybe a conversation about sports is fun, is that a truly important conversation like our faith, talking about our faith?
No.
No, I guess it's just more for enjoyment. Like when I guess like I've had a similar like situation where I was texting with a friend, so maybe it wasn't the best time, but I know she's going through like a rough time. So I was like sort of like poking at the chance to just like tell you like, oh, you need a little more of this, or like, have you considered this? And then she sort of just like went on with it. Like she didn't care or didn't take it seriously. So she just sort of just like went past it. And then I never really brought it up much more.
Okay. And that's the hard thing with like texting with somebody is you can't maybe see their reaction to it. Like if you're talking to somebody face to face, you can see their reaction.
Yeah.
You can see if they're engaging, or if, looking at somebody's facial expressions really tells a lot about what the person's thinking.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I can't control that. Texting, you can't get that, or you don't even get to see like the tone of voice. And that to me is important, because when somebody says something, there's different ways that you can hear that. And like, I'm thinking of the movie Anchorman, where like Ron Burgundy's talking. He's like, I am Ron Burgundy, because somebody put a question mark at it. So instead of saying I am Ron Burgundy, he kind of did that inflection, like I am Ron Burgundy. So you had that like making a question.
Yeah.
And so we can hear that. But if you're just seeing that, you might not, if the person's not using punctuation or whatever, you don't get that tone of voice. And would you guys say that's more common? Like, how do you say you interact with your friends more? Is it face-to-face like this, or more via texting or Snapchat or some form of social media?
For me, it's face-to-face.
Face-to-face easily.
I don't have a very good phone to talk like that.
Okay.
I mean, it really depends on the person. Like some people I'll text more often and then see them face to face, but it really depends.
Okay.
For me, like, I don't really socialize when texting. Like, I just do it to plan stuff, you know?
Okay.
For me, it's like a mix of both. I know I have a lot of people where I like only talk to them face to face, but also other people, I text a lot or like video call, stuff
Okay.
like that.
And I was just curious because, I mean, I would say the generalization of you guys, because are you Gen Alpha, right? You're not
I'm
Gen
Gen
Z.
Z.
You are?
I
Just
think we're
in
we're like
between.
the
last,
borderline?
Yeah.
Okay. That's why I couldn't think.
it was
Yeah, because
2012.
sometimes you see you're Gen Z, but the other times you see Gen Alpha.
Yeah.
But
It really depends on who tells you. It's just so like
I'm Gen Alpha.
What?
So Gen Alpha,
generation.
Gen Z is
boomers.
people born between 97 and 2012.
Oh, okay.
So what year were you guys all at before 2012?
2011.
January
2012.
2012.
Okay, so yeah, so you guys are kind of
Right
right
on
there
there.
on that borderline. But yeah, so for Lucas, this is probably a topic I do enjoy talking about is like the whole idea of like generations, where like you divide like people born between certain ages and kind of there's different things that define generations, like important events, the people that kind of influence them, and there's personality kind of traits equated to each of those generations. So like I'm an elder millennial, so like a lot of people tend to bash millennials, but I am a millennial and I'm on the like some will say that you got to divide millennials into two groups and I fall into the geriatric, which is the older millennials and I would agree that there's a huge difference for me being born in 84 than somebody born in 1996 as a millennial because like from like 84 when I was born to the mid 90s, we didn't have technology like we do now. If somebody was born in 96, when they're 4 years old in 2000, having the internet at home was probably pretty standard. For me, it wasn't until I was like your guys' age or a little bit younger that like internet was in our home. So that like shapes you and like the influences. Like I know I have a chart somewhere in my computer talking about like the influences of that. So yeah, as we're talking about generations, and I think we kind of got on this conversation because like we see the decrease in like Christianity in the younger generations, like how like those that identify as Christian has gone lower and lower as we start from the greatest generation going down to Gen Z. And so with that, as we think about that idea of the generations and sharing about your faith, what are some of the struggles that you guys feel when it comes to sharing your faith with others? What makes it difficult?
So when I'm talking to my friends or like hanging out with them, the opportunity doesn't really come up to like share with them about my faith. So I haven't really gotten the chance to do much and share my faith with them.
Okay, so for Gavin, it's kind of that lack of opportunity. You don't see that opportunity?
I feel like it's kind of like a fear of like what if they don't like accept it kind of and they like push you away.
So okay,
kinda
so
like
they
that.
don't receive it well.
Yeah.
Kenzie, any thoughts?
Yeah, sort of similar to Elijah, how it's like if you try, it might ruin the relationship, and there's always that fear of that happening. So it sort of just takes away the possibility in your own mind.
Right, and so both of these are, I think, legitimate things of like, because, depending on your friends and how they are, that idea of like bringing up that conversation out of the blue, they might think, what is he doing or she doing? That's not a conversation we want to have. But I think the key is like with that, maybe when there's different things going on, you can kind of find ways to interject your faith into those conversations. Like maybe like something difficult's going on in somebody's life and you could share with them, well, this is how I was able to get through it. Because I know all of you guys participate in different activities, whether it's a sport or music or whatever, but have you ever gone through a difficult time in one of those things or like a stressful moment performing in one of those ways?
Like both of them said, I wouldn't say afraid, but I'm worried about how maybe it'll affect our friendship after that. I don't really want to seem like, especially if it's a friend group, no one wants to seem like an outsider kind of.
Okay.
So yeah, what they said.
And we'll get to kind of that part in a little bit, that idea of like how it could affect friendships and different things. But any thoughts about like seeing those different maybe like moments where you're not like, oh, well, the Bible speaks on this topic by saying this, but maybe where you can like interject your faith into that conversation where it doesn't feel forced. Do you guys kind of understand that idea, what I'm trying to get at, or
Yeah.
is that easy or hard to kind of pick up on those like cues in a sense where it can be an opportunity to share about your faith?
Yeah, I guess maybe it's because you get used to like talking a certain way with that friend or like person, so then you just don't look for the opportunity.
Right, and I think that's not just for youth. I think it's for everybody. Is we sometimes don't realize, oh, this could be an opportunity to witness about my faith, because also another aspect with that, there's those opportunities where we just living our normal life where it kind of presents it to open up when somebody maybe sees something differently how we live your life. Because has there been times where maybe somebody has mistreated you, but you have turned the other cheek and kind of responded in that Christian way of like showing love to that person?
Yeah, I would say so. I can't think of like a specific instance, but
Right.
I think that's happened to me before.
And that can be an opportunity when somebody maybe says to you, well, why'd you act that way? You can say, well, it's because of my faith. And that kind of opens up those dialogues. Like, I think one of the easier ways you can see that maybe open up dialogues is like if you're grieving the loss of a loved one, where you can say it's because of my faith that I can find hope in that midst of losing somebody. Or like after a tough loss in a sporting event, and you can point to Christ of saying, it wasn't part of God's plan, but grateful for the opportunity. So to me, I think that would be the key aspect of that idea of like, the conversation doesn't come up. Yes, you don't have to force it. It's not like when you go hang out with your friends, you're like, okay, I have my note cards of notes, and if they could talk about this topic, here's how I'm going to share Jesus. But it's that natural, and it might come with more experience in life where you can see, oh, you can point to God easier, and that can open up those conversations of witnessing to somebody. And all of you kind of agreed to the whole fear of what the other person might think, or that how it would affect a friendship, which is a valid concern. And when you think about that valid concern, have you ever, and I think we kind of talked about, but just kind of refresh here, have you ever shared that faith with somebody and then they responded negatively to you talking about your faith?
No, that does not happen. Because mostly when I like share my faith, it's not like sharing it, it's just kind of like stating it. And it's mostly with my other friends who go to the school who I already know are Christians.
Okay. And why are we, just throwing this out there, why are we so afraid of like, what could others think about us when it comes to our faith?
Like, I know that Christianity is one of the biggest religions in the world and the most followed, but that's only like 2.3 billion people, and there's still a great deal of people, especially in the U.S., that are still not Christian, that aren't Christian and might be atheists and be very much opposed to it. So sharing it might ruin your friendship and like completely dismantle it.
Okay.
Yeah, so I feel like even though the Bible like states that we shouldn't like be like a part of this world, I feel like it's easy to get like caught up in like the in this world, I guess, and like be afraid.
Yeah, and I think that's our human nature is we want to be liked by everybody. Because I don't think any of us sitting here says, you know what, I want to live my life and think that nobody likes me. You go through your life of wanting everybody to like you. But what about the idea of like, whose thought matters more? God's thought of you or other people?
God's.
And I'm putting it, I know it's a hard answer, like it's an easy answer, but hard to actually live that out. Why do you think it's hard to live that out? Like we know we want God's approval, we want God to like us, but we're more afraid almost in a sense of what others think of us. Why do you think we have that mentality?
Well, human nature, they just tend to think of themselves right in the moment. They don't think of themselves in the future unless they have like insane self-control. Like that's how I feel sometimes about like homework. Like, I'll do it later. But then my future self is like, oh, I just want to go to bed. I have to do my homework still. So I just think people think about what they're going to do on earth and not later on when they're in heaven and like what God thinks of them instead of other people in the human world.
Yeah, I feel like it's a little challenging because a lot of us like focus on like the seen rather than the unseen.
Right. So I'm just going to throw a Bible verse out here at you guys. Luke chapter 12, verses 4 through 5. My friends, I can guarantee that you don't need to be afraid of those who kill the body, and after that, they can't do anything more. I'll show you the one who you should be afraid of. Be afraid of the one who has the power to throw you into hell after killing you. I'm warning you to be afraid of him. So I know that's kind of very law-oriented, but what do you think when you hear that verse?
Thinking on that, I was just thinking about how, referring back to Gavin, how people can just get so caught up in what they're doing and then sort of forget about like opportunities that they could take in a conversation to share their faith.
So we were talking about some of the things, the struggles, but what are ways that you guys feel that can help maybe share the gospel? What are ways that can make it easier for you guys? Or maybe there's nothing you can think of right now, but what are those ways maybe if there's something comes to mind?
I think sharing the gospel comes to like many things, but I mostly share the gospel throughout school, just kind of practicing. But I think I haven't done it yet. I haven't really practiced that yet, but I think in high school there will be a lot of opportunities that I'll be able to share, or chances that will like challenge my faith, and I'll defend that.
Okay, and like you were talking about the sharing the gospel here at the school, and I know we kind of think we talked about it earlier. The whole idea of like sharing your faith here might not be as hard because I would say majority of your classmates, if not all, are Christians. Obviously, there could be some that aren't Christians. So like when I'm thinking of this idea of evangelism, sharing the gospel with others, I'm thinking of sharing it with non-Christians or de-churched. So somebody that maybe has walked away from the church or somebody that has no like background on the church. So what are things that might help you guys, or what are questions that you have of what could make that easier?
I think something that'll help a lot is later in the year, Mr. Saunders has like this sharing the gospel project kind of. So I think that'll help a lot.
Right. So are you guys nervous about sharing the gospel?
Not really.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
I mean,
Not
I just think it's gonna be a lot of work.
Not the practice part, but I am kind of worried about the high school stuff when there are a lot of people who will challenge my faith. And I think that might be tough for me. But I think I'm kind of looking forward to it later in the year.
So Gavin, you kind of talked about the idea of like practice versus like real life, so to speak, when you're in high school. Does that guys concern you guys more, like when you look at like sharing the gospel with Mr. Saunders in 8th grade, being more of a practice compared to maybe the, in a sense, bigger consequences of actually sharing with somebody in real life when that actually could affect that person's salvation?
I think in real life, it's like a lot harder, if you go to like a stranger, someone you don't like have connected with. But if you go to like your friends or something, I think it's a lot more difficult.
Okay. Why is it a lot more difficult with your friends?
Kind of like what we touched on before, like the fear, of like them not taking it well.
So like the fear of maybe losing a friendship?
Yeah.
But I'll just throw this hypothetical out. Let's say you do share your faith with somebody and they do say, I want nothing to do, I don't want to be your friend anymore. Was that solid of a friendship that they can't value your opinions or when it comes to?
No.
I was just kind of thinking I'm just curious what you guys' thoughts on that kind of general question is.
I don't think that's a very solid friendship if they don't support your religion or your faith or your beliefs.
Yeah, I would think if they're not willing to hear you out, what really is that friendship built upon? Not saying that person's a bad person or you guys weren't friends, but how deep of a connection? Because as you guys probably have seen throughout your life, especially as now you're getting into 8th grade, there's deeper level of friendships with people. because you have friends, but there's probably like different like concentric circles of your friends where there's like that inner circle where you're willing to share anything with that person. Then there's kind of the outer where it's like, hey, we're friends, we go do stuff, but maybe it's more superficial, the conversation's not as deep. And then there might be like, you could go to like classmates that, okay, I see this person in school. If we get assigned working together, that's fine. I can work with that person. And so that I think is the kind of key when you look at that as like the friendship kind of circle, if you want to call it that, of like where somebody falls in that. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's where too, like, where who do you feel more comfortable sharing your faith with? Somebody more on that inner circle or somebody on an outer circle of that friendship?
I would more likely share something more on the outer circle because it's less to lose if they don't think the same way. But again, as you said, if someone on the inner circle doesn't want to be friends with you afterwards, not a very good friendship you had to begin with then.
I'll throw this question back at you, Gavin, because you were talking about, it'd be easier to share it with somebody more on the outskirts, on the outer levels of the friendship wheel or circle, whatever you want to call it. But wouldn't you want to see that person on that inner circle that's like your best friend in heaven one day? And if you don't share with them or they don't come to know Jesus, they're not going to be in heaven?
Dang, you got some good questions.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I mean-
Yeah, I would. I really would. I think that would be nice if I would see one of my best friends in heaven. So, yeah, maybe the inner circle then.
Yeah, for me personally, I think it would be easier for the inner circle just because I know them better and it's easier for me to talk to people I know well. And I probably wouldn't just tell them all at once. I'd kind of slowly, tell them about Christian faith and some things about the Bible. And then, I might ask them what they think about it. But, yeah.
Yeah, I think the inner circle is also easier, but at one point for like a goal, I want to, be able to share with everybody, not just like inner or outer.
Right.
Yeah.
Where it feels comfortable. Kenzie, were you going to say something?
Yeah, kind of relating to Lucas, where it's like that inner circle, it can be easier because you know how to talk to them or you know what situation they're in. But it can just depend, like, what situation your friends are in or what your relationship with them is like.
Right. And with that whole idea of the inner circle, I think that might be a little bit easier because if you're in that inner circle, there's more of a trust with that person. And so you trust, so they're going to kind of value what you say. And it's easier when you have that trust that, like I said, if they're in that inner circle, hopefully that should be a solid enough friendship where they will listen to you. They might not agree, but you can still share. And like, I think Kenzie, you were talking about, like, you can find that way to talk into that, like where you kind of know them better so you can kind of talk to them easier. Because you probably have, because how would you say you have deep conversations with your closest friends?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
No.
Yeah. No.
so half of you guys, yes, half of you guys no. For those that said yes to that, you can talk with deeper conversation with those like in your inner circle, so to speak. Is it hard to have those conversations?
Not really.
It really depends on the topic.
Depends on the topic.
I don't have deep conversations with my friends. I mean, kids from school, yeah, but like outside school, nah.
And Elijah, you said, yeah, it's easy to have those conversations.
Yeah, well, I mean, at least for some of my friends, like I've like built that trust with them. Like it's like so strong that we're able to talk about things and not really think too much about it.
And not think how they're going to respond.
Yeah.
And the kind of why I brought that question up is trying to get at, like, Elijah, you kind of spoke a little bit more into it, that idea of, like, it is easy to have those deeper conversations with someone like those on the inner circle of your friendship. And, if those conversations are easy, kind of flip that to how that feels so natural and easy to, like, talk about faith. And I think that's what the goal is that all of you kind of are talking about, that you want to get to, where it just becomes that natural conversation and that natural flow. And that's something you'll see with the friends. Like, I think, too, a lot of my close friends, I might not see them a lot because we're spread out throughout the country and different things. But when we do get together or see each other, I see a friend, it feels just like old times. Like you fall back into that natural rhythm of that conversation. And that's one of those kind of cool things about those close friendships of how that happens. And going back to that question you guys said was good, like that's the whole idea of like telling somebody, especially those that you're closest with, about Jesus so they come to know. That's what the whole basis for the one is, because you want to see that person in heaven. Yes, we want to see everybody in heaven, but do we have connections to everybody in the world?
No.
No, because we all have our own circle of influences. Because all of you guys live in different parts of where we live. Like not everybody here lives in Palatine. Some do, some don't. And so God has placed you in that community, in your neighborhood that you live, and the people you're around to have that circle of influence on that person or in that group. Because, you know, as we were kind of talking a little bit off air, like Lucas, you were talking about, you know, I know how you got injured through soccer. So that's a different circle of influence there that you have with your teammates. Where does Elijah have that same circle of influence with those that you play soccer with?
No, because he doesn't know them.
Right, and same with Gavin, Kenzie, or myself. And, you know, the same would go for me. Like, the people that I know that I've met throughout my life, I can have an influence on them because I know them. And that's why God needs each of us to share that message of Christ with everybody so that we can impact that circle of influence that God has placed us on. So yeah, guys, thank you for this time as we were working on this podcast, and I hope this was beneficial to you guys. And thank you, everybody, for listening, and God's blessings.
PD and P Dubs, Unscripted.